have to transfer selections and it will be transported, it will be here. And you have to check all these objects. For example, if you want them to transport it. So the collection mode is there, it should be collected automatically. So generally the best practice is to transport it only necessary objects other than in data flow before and afterwards, because you will be confused what are the objects we collected and what are missing, etc. So it is good to collect like this, because sometimes you can just go to the info object catalogs and add them, because in info object catalogs it can be 100 objects, 150 objects. So it is like, you can add directly. There is a mass processing. For example, 150 objects are there. We don't want to do it separately. We can do 5-6 cubes. We can do DTPs, 3-4 DTPs or 3-4 transformations separately, to be specific. But we don't want to do info object catalog, and this is separate. So you can directly pick some catalog and double click on this, and it will be available. So there are a lot of changes we need to make here. For example, if it is not being used, for example, if you are the first one using, you have to make changes yourself. In the changes will be available in object changeability. You will get errors. For those errors, you have to troubleshoot and make it right, and sometimes you might need to follow some function modules and activate them. Here itself you can see some error. It is not available in active version. Such errors you have to go manually and you have to activate them, and then you try. So basically, if you have info object catalogs to transfer, because they have huge list of info objects, it is very good, and because it is only one catalog and you can directly transfer them. And in data flow before and afterwards, and then you have to execute this. So that will be executed. So here for the BEX, we always assign some request number separately, and that will be transported every 15 days or every 10 days, like that. So it depends on the requirement. So all the changes made to the BEX will be automatically returned to the request. It never asks for the whatever you do in the BEX reporting. It never asks you for the request. So for that purpose, we give request ourselves. For example, I have assigned some request here for the BEX reporting, and it will be assigned here, and it will run for BEX. And then once we decide to transport it, release that, we can release it, and immediately we can create another request and assign it to the BEX. So that is done here, and the standard, I was talking about standard transportation. So that will be here, switch on standard, switch off standard. there is I mean this option. It means that if we switch off the standard, it will not prompt us for the request, and it will quietly write it to the local objects. And if we need the objects, if we need to transport that object, we have to separately, we have to separately write it to the request. And here I was talking about object changeability. Here you will have different objects, and it has the status either changeable or not changeable. For example, you are trying to do something and you are not able to get that. So the for that reason, for this reason, you won't get it. You have to come here and turn it to the changeable by double clicking this, so it will work then. So that is the transport connection. That is where we can group all the objects, and we can transport it. So in order to release the transport request, you have to go to SE10 and you have to release the transport request here, and you can import the transport request in HTMS in the target system. For example, I will give you how it looks. For example, this is the HTML, this is how it looks, but you have to do it in QoS system. Here we are doing it in development system. Well, it doesn't have any landscape. So here, after coming to HTMS, you have to go transport. Here you will see a lot of requests. It will be huge, and you have to select your recent request will be at the down. You have to select the request and import that. Once you release it in development, it will be available here. So you have to select the request and import that. That's it. So for example, even if you want to uh, if, for example, if you haven't imported it properly, you can do the re-import. There is a setting here, re-import. Here it will be within this, not this, not this one. So there is a one option where you can re-import that. So generally that is the basis people's work, and you don't have to do that. Your work is to transport it in a sequence, and the sequence of the transport is data sources, info packages, info object catalogs and info areas, and then DSO, info cube, multi-providers, transformations, DTPs, queries, process chains. You have to follow this sequence when you're transporting. It means practically speaking, you don't have to follow this sequence. If you, if you have a separate transport request for data sources, separate transport request for data sources and info packs, and another transport request for info objects catalogs and info areas, DSOs, info cube, multi-provider, one transport request for transformations and DTPs, and one transport request for process chains. For example, you have all these transport requests. You have to give the sequence. It is not that you have to collect the objects in this sequence. It means that when someone is importing these objects in QoS system, they have to take care that the sequence would be like this, because for the first thing which has to which should be installed in the target system is data sources, right? Because here we replicate data sources, install data sources first, and then next thing is info packages. This is where the staging happens, and then these are the data targets. We create info object catalogs, info areas, DSOs, info queues, multi-providers, and all that. So these are the data targets, and then the data transformation takes place. So transformations and DTPs. So this is the flow. I mean, you have to think it normally. I mean, like casually. Uh, like when you are creating a flow, this is how the data flows. So when you are installing these objects to the target machine, this is the, I mean, process you have to follow. This is the sequence you have to follow to install the objects. So who will do this? The, I mean, basis people will do this, and they won't have knowledge about BW objects. We have to tell them which transport request we have created for data sources and info packages, and we don't have to tell them the objects, etc. We just have to give the sequence in a mail, and they will follow the sequence. For example, you have request say 001, and say first 1 and 5, 1 then 5 then 3 then 2, like that. Give the request, I mean, sequence, and ask them to follow the sequence, and they will install it request per request. Transport requests are nothing but like folders where we saw